introduction, Jack, let me begin with an introduction. We're speaking with Jack Waitz today, the husband of the late marathoner Grete Waitz. And Jack met Greta actually when she was a teenager at their sports club Vidar in Oslo, Norway. And was her friend, training partner, then became her husband, coach. And just to summarize, as Greta herself confirmed, she could have never had the career that she did without Jack. So, Jack, if you want to kind of explain how you knew Greta in those early days and how you started running together and training, and
Yeah,
then we'll move on to her career.
yeah. No, a lot of people have asked me when I met Greta, but I can't really tell because she was there. I mean, and she was 6 years younger than me. So when she joined the club, she was 12. I was 18. I didn't look around for 12-year-olds at that time. So I don't really know when I met her for the first time, but as you said, a little later, when she was actually in 1972, she was dating another friend of mine actually, and he died of cancer that year. And then her brother and we had to do something because she did her exam that year, her college degree, and she did study actually during when he was sick, so she had a very hard time. Um, so we started to get her going with training. We started out training with her again, and it we I don't know how to explain it, but before then we had some sort of a contact, not any real uh, relationship or anything like that, because she was with my friend actually, but it was a little difficult relationship she had with this guy, and yeah, it was tough, but so we started to run together, train, and pretty quickly we we it started to be a relationship with us. So 1 year later, actually, we moved in an apartment. I was in another relationship as well, so that's why I had an apartment ready.
Mhm.
So it was not that normal at that time that 18-year-olds girls moved in with a
Mhm.
older man, so to say. And I don't know sure if her parents enjoyed it, but we had a very good relationship already. And in 1973, we moved into this apartment a little outside Oslo, where it was really, really excellent training facilities. We lived 100 yards from entrance to the forest that are around in Oslo. So um, yes, as I said, 73, we moved in, and we started to train more or less all the time together. I always consulted with somebody else.
Right.
Uh, I mean, all through her career, I was consulting with some other coaches.
When did you know that she was good or getting good? When did that period of time start?
Well, that was early because we were having training sessions, my club, and when she was 14, 15 years old, or in that age, maybe 16, uh, somebody said that this time we are going to have a girl with us running. And that was great. And we guys, we thought she was pretty crazy that she was going to run with us. We thought of ourselves that we was really decent runners. But she had no problems following us on
Yeah.
maybe 7, 8 miles steady run. And so I knew already then that she was something special.
Okay. Well, fast forwarding even
Mm,
to her track career and then her Olympic career, I want to get to the first New York City Marathon so we can
mhm.
talk about the New York part.
Yeah.
So, can you explain to me why and how she was invited to come and at what point in her life she was? Because I know she still had her full-time job, I believe, as a teacher. But how did that invitation happen and how did you decide to come?
Uh, yeah, it's not very easy to answer, but um, 1976, in 1975, she broke the world record in the 3,000 meter, which was the longest distance for women at that time.
Mhm.
And in 76, she was beating everybody in the 1,500 meter. And we
Mhm.
went to the Olympics in Montreal, and she was eliminated. She didn't make the final. She was very disappointed. It was a strange race, and I knew at that time that we would face the East Europeans. You don't see them before the big events at that time. So, but when we came back to Norway, we she was very disappointed, and she told me that she wanted to retire, and was a couple of incidences that happened. One day we were out running. I mean, you have to understand, at that time she was a big star already in Norway, and newspapers were different than they are today. I mean, that was the big headlines. And when she came back from the Olympics, it was disaster and all these bad writings. And one day we were out running. We ran by a group of young kids, and we heard one of them say to the other, there's the girl that, how should I explain it, that made a fool of Norway during the Olympics or something like that. And then she said, I don't want to do anything anymore. So she was close to retire. But then uh, I, as I also did several times, I was talking her into well, first of all, we went to a race in Stockholm, which was a 15K cross-country race, which is the biggest cross-country race in the world, actually. 30,000 runners now. And she ran the 15K, and she won it with minutes. And she was interviewed by the Swedish TV. I have that clip still. And the very famous broadcaster says this is something must be the best I see in any endurance sport ever. And I said, I looking forward to have you back here next year. And then she says, no, I think I will retire now. And but then I discussed with her, and we decided to take an easy year in that respect, that we didn't plan for anything. She she did start doing some cross-country skiing races that winter. She started to play a very popular sport in Norway. It's team handball, which is a very rough sport. And she had played a little handball when she was a kid. So she started to play team handball, but she was training. And it's really fun to read those diaries for the moment that she had maybe 2 sessions running, and then she had a training with the handball team in the
Yeah.
evening. So, but forward
To New
70,
York. Yeah, take me to New York that
yeah,
year.
yeah,
Yeah.
78.
Yeah. Go
We were
ahead.
we were in Prague, in Czech. There was a European Championship, and she ran 4 minutes flat for the 1,500, which was a very good time at that time, and she was fifth in that race. And by the way, that Norwegian is still the Norwegian record,
Mhm.
almost 50 years later. And she was third in the 3000, and she was beaten by the East Europeans. And at that time, we knew that they didn't have the same meals that we had. So we were sitting on the stands there in Prague after the race, and we talked to a Norwegian runner, Knut Kvalheim. And Grete said that, nah, I'm going to stop now. I work twice a day. I train twice a day. I work full time. And you see what happens. I get beaten. So I can't keep doing this. And you have also to remember there was absolutely no money in the running that time.
Mhm.
And Knut had run New York Marathon in 1977. And he said, we all know that you should run longer. And I ran New York last year. I dropped out, but it was a really great experience and fun race. And why don't you and Jack go to New York and do the marathon before you retire? So we decided to go because we had never been to the States, and
Mhm.
I can't remember if it was me or Greta that called the New York Roadrunners.
Mhm.
She talked to some sort of a secretary or so and said that she would like to come to New York and run the marathon.
Mhm.
They asked her what was her best time and so and so, and she had never run a marathon before, but I'm a pretty good runner. But nothing happened. But a few days later, Fred called, Fred Lebo. He had seen that little yellow postage note
Mhm.
with Greta's name on, and he was eager to have her to come. And he said, "Yes, we really would like Greta to come." And and but yeah, we would like to come. And then he said, "I'm sorry, but I can't afford more than one ticket." So then we said, "Okay, we are not going." So we dropped it again, and then I talked to a friend, a runner, and he knew somebody in Finnair, the Finnish airline, who was the first sponsor I think they had in New York.
Yes.
And
Awesome.
they came up with a ticket to me
Yeah.
on Wednesday before the marathon. So we left on Thursday just to be tourists in New York and see the city. And we didn't pay any attention at all about the race. We didn't know anything about the marathon. We didn't know any course. We didn't know how to prepare. We had not, she had maybe run uh,
12 miles was the
12
longest she
miles or
had run.
something like that.
But
Yeah.
but something interesting, Fred wanted her originally because he felt she'd be a rabbit, the pace
Yes.
setter,
He
because the
told me
other
that.
Marty
Talking about
Cooksey was that, and
yeah.
I just remember Greta's description of the marathon, and then I want you to confirm whether this is true, was that first of all, she'd never seen so many people on a starting line. There were 11,000 people that year. That was amazing. And she said that it started to hurt, and that every time she turned a corner and saw a tree, she was hoping that was Central Park. But there are other trees in New York. And
Yeah.
that when she finished, and all of the broadcasters said they saw her race number and they said 1178. Who is 1178? Nobody knew who she was. She said she threw down her shoes and said to you, I will never do this again. Is that true?
Yeah, she didn't throw down the shoes. She threw them after me.
Oh, she threw them at you.
And
Oh,
I was glad that there was nobody speaking Norwegian around there. But she was angry. She was angry. She
yeah.
really was hurt. She was, yeah, I told her not to keep, when she started, I told her, uh, I didn't go out to the start with her. And I told her, just stay with these other girls because they have done this before and they are
Yeah.
pretty good. It's going to be slow for you, but you can't do anything. Just stay behind. And she didn't do that. So she was
Okay. And
way
so
ahead.
she ran, was it 2:32? It was a world record
Yeah.
and it was her first time. And I'd like to know how that New York experience changed from then on for you and to relate to the other New York races and world races that she ran, but particularly in New York, and whether you, either of you, had any sense of why New York had this very developed race, what the background of running in New York was. Did you know anything about it at all?
No, we didn't do
So,
any research. We just had
okay,
this conversation with this Norwegian runner, and of course, I looked up several things about who was running and all these type of things, but it was meant to be one time only race, and you know they called us. I don't know how much details we are going, but they called us or called me at the hotel a little later that day because there was big confusion, because as you said, she had this handwritten number.
yeah,
I talked to Catherine Switzer a couple of years ago, and she was in the motorbike commentating. She didn't know who Grete was.
yeah,
Even
nobody knew. Nobody knew.
nobody.
And yet, fast forwarding 9 wins, a record that will probably, I'm sure, will never be broken by anybody, man or woman.
It's not
And
possible.
your lives were completely changed. Um, how do you feel, even though you yourself, as a broadcaster and a runner and a coach, you've been all over the world, you've seen running on the track and everywhere. What was it about New York and the races in New York that helped develop these other races and that was so special? Because this changed your lives. She became so famous that cabbies would lean out of the cabin. Hi, Greta. I mean, New York was like a second home for you at some point.
Yeah, it was amazing. But after the reorg race, she was still not planning to do any more racing actually, and I don't know if you go to all the details as I said, but later that close to Christmas, Bob Anderson, the founder of Runner's World, he called and asked if Grete could come to San Francisco and do a seminar and run a 5 mile New Year's race. And I said, I'm sorry, she has retired. We have rented a cottage in the mountain for skiing with the family. And he said, okay, sorry to hear that. There was so much curiosity about Grete. So I would really. But then he called again a few days later and said, if you bring the family to San Francisco, would that change? And of course that changed because I mean, 5 people going to San Francisco at that days was not something we had dreamt about. And she ran that race, and then she really realized,
That was a world record as well, wasn't it?
yes, but she enjoyed that race because she was running with all kinds of people. I mean, she was used to track running and all this stress regarding the track, and she enjoyed that. So that changed her mind, uh, and uh, and then she was asked to go to Australia and New Zealand and run some track races in January. And she took 3 weeks off school and she went there. And the year that she should retire, she ran 47 races,
Oh,
which is unheard of today.
mhm.
Of course, Fred called, wanted her to come to New York for the legs mini marathon.
Okay.
We thought
Let's talk about the mini marathon. I want to talk about the year that she said she ran the hardest race she ever had. That was what she said at the time when she broke 30 minutes.
31 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. Um, how did that race impact her? Because what I'm getting at is that eventually she started her own women's race. This was the impact that New York had on her. So, in addition to her own accomplishments, something about her achievements, particularly in New York, spurred her to do other extraordinary things. How many women now how many women run that Oslo women's race?
Yeah, the race was supposed we had we they were going to raise a sculpture of Greta outside of her famous
In
stadium.
84, right? This was 84. Yeah.
And I had, of course, been in New York with Grete says these women races. So I said, why don't we put on a women's race in Oslo in connection with the unveiling? And 3,000 girls showed up for that race, and so we decided together with my club and also an association that promotes running, we put on a race. And 10 years later, which we had a peak, they had
Mhm.
47,000
Oh,
women running greatest great the Grete Waitz run.
yeah, yeah.
If you are in Oslo now, I was Joni came to visit me last year,
Uh-huh.
and we went to parts of the course where they have kept the signs
Oh,
permanently. Grete Waitz run course. It's still marked there.
it strikes me that the impact that was Joan Samuelson, who was an Olympic gold medalist in the marathon, and when Greta got silver, the first women's marathon in 1984. So what we're dealing with is not just the impact of Greta winning all those times, it's setting all those world records, getting an editorial in the New York Times, with her time of 2:27, waiting for the Olympic marathon. So that led to the Olympic marathon, her world championship wins. Did you at the time understand, or how did you feel about how all of this evolved from wanting to retire to that kind of career?
Yeah, it was in many ways. You knew Greta well, and it was a little mixed feelings actually. She didn't like to be was
The center of attention?
yeah.
Yeah.
But she started to learn how to act when she was doing this, and um somewhere down the road, I think she started to enjoy what she was doing. But as you said, it we have never thought about what type of impact. And
Yeah.
as you say, in New York, it was very special. I mean, it's uh, she was what do you say? What do you say when people are famous, not only for what they are doing, but
Yeah.
they know her anyway. So
Yes, yes. And there are several reasons why, because I skip ahead a little. When you talk about the impact and the women's race she created, think about all of the other things she was able to do. And I think of Active Against Cancer in particular as
mhm.
being part of that, of her efforts. So it wasn't just which she founded and was exercise for cancer patients. But the point is, as you say, she wasn't just famous for what she accomplished in running. She was also famous for the person who she was, and she was able to express that. So
Yeah.
I have an interesting question for you. I have always wondered about the relationship of Greta and Fred. Here was a person who was primarily responsible for her bringing to the marathon, and whose fame, in a sense, grew together as the marathon grew into 30,000 people, today over 55,000, how many ever. But as things grew and their fame, each of their fame grew together, I can't think of two more unlikely people to have been part of a partnership like this. He made her famous, she made him famous, and to top it off, was it 1990, the year that she ran New York with Fred, as he had been in remission from cancer? Do I have the right year?
Should be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't.
And it took 5 hours or whatever. She said she was in such pain from tiptoeing along for all those miles. I was behind her for 10K, and she said, and I felt as well, that she had never, in all her years of being cheered for, felt anything like that. It
It was
was people screaming and cheering. And here were these two people who had made each other so well known. through the running movement, it's still very moving to me. I think she was also very affected by that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You see that when she finished, she's crying like a
Yeah.
child, and
Yeah.
um she, what shall I say? Now Fred and her, they sort of bonded one way. They were very
Yes.
different, but he came to Norway and visited us, and we always had, we found him a little strange, little,
Very
but
strange. Yes.
uh, it was a very nice relationship, and she was able to visit him when he was in the hospital before he died, and
Yeah.
so they were very good friends. And as you say, it, there are people, that have talked to me and who has been following her on another perspective. They says that it was her and it was Fred and New York Marathon, and it was also New York at that time. Everything came together. I mean, New York was not that great the first years we were there, but sort of it developed through same time as
Yes. Yes.
race.
Had you ever known of the history of running in New York in terms of the pioneers, people like Ted Corbett and all of the people who still worked on the marathon, but many of whom, were not around anymore at that point? Did you know that it had these roots, that they had run the marathon in circles in Central Park and that they had run up in the Bronx? Did you
Oh
ever
yeah.
learn about that history?
Oh yes, I'm very well aware. I'm very well aware of the history, yes, and Ted Corbett and all the other uh, pioneers there.
Yes, yes.
We met many of them, of course. So that
Oh,
was
who
all.
did you meet?
Ah,
Did you
what's it?
meet Ted? Did you know Ted?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah.
The and what is was the other guy, the little guy, little built guy that was
Kurt
always
Steiner and Joe Kleinerman.
pioneer, yes,
Yeah,
and George, of course.
George Hirsch.
I meet him normally a couple of times a year, so that's
Oh,
nice. So yes, I'm very well aware of, and also Gary Murphy, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One more question. With everything you know about New York and everything you learned, how does that affected your own work in continuing, such as, you work closely with Oslo Marathon, but you've been to a lot of, in your career, a lot of other running events. Do you
Mhm.
see the impact of New York? Do you think that that started in New York and then went to those other places?
Yes, I know for sure that, for instance, Stockholm Marathon started in 81,
Yeah.
and Anders Olsen, the guy that was the man behind, he read about Grete in Sports Illustrated and read about the New York Marathon, and
Uh,
he says that was the thing that really uh, got him into have the idea of making a marathon. And also Chris Brasher in London,
London.
he came to New York, and they started in 81, and he also says that her impact was what also made it for them actually, because Norwegian woman winning that race, and it created interest in Europe. So, and also the Grete Waitz run in Norway, uh, they came from Ireland, they came
Oh,
from Switzerland, they came from other countries to see the race. And now they have big women's race in Switzerland. They have big race in Dublin, and actually, so this was the first in Europe actually.
oh. I'm still so amazed by it. And I also want to say, as part of her career, she was a wonderful public speaker, and she and I wrote 4 or 5 books together, many of which were translated in other languages. Um, I had never met anyone who was such an extraordinary student. That's the other thing we should say. She was an honor student. She wrote me answers in English, in her work ethic and her academics. She was an extraordinary person during an extraordinary time, and it makes me appreciate and understand that the gift of Greta and the gift of Fred and all of the pioneers and people like it was to take a sport, a simple sport, and
Oh
make it
yeah.
into something so much bigger. And now you're explaining the impact of also her women's race. It just goes on and on.
And
Um,
another thing that I remember, because Fred didn't really know too much about track and field. I mean,
oh,
he was
yeah.
he was a jogger that suddenly finds something that was fun, and I remember he talked to me that Grete won the world cross country championship 5 times.
Hmm.
Uh, in Paris in 80, there was 30,000 people watching it, and it was very big. And I talked to Fred about it, and he said, okay. And in 84, he organized the World Championship in New Jersey or in New
In the
York, I think.
Meadowlands, yes, we had to go to Europe to
Yeah,
bid. It had never been outside of Africa and Europe. And this would be the first time in North America. And we had to go make a bid to get, then the World Cross Country is an incredibly prestigious event. So
yeah,
you're finding another branch on the tree of the impact of New York running. We had to make a bid in front of the committee,
yeah.
the IAAF, and we won this event and we had this race, which Carlos Lopes won from Portugal. Um, and so, again, let me ask you one more thing when we talk about the impact, the Active Against Cancer, how that grew and how that impacts people. Because to me, that's like the cherry on top of the sundae. All of these amazing influences, and that being even a step ahead, bringing running
Mm.
to this kind of forum. How did that develop? I mean, where does that stand?
Well, it stands really good, actually. We we have built training facilities for cancer patients in 24 hospitals in Norway.
Oh,
And we have educated 800 licensed coaches for cancer patients. And we have worked, and I shouldn't take I have been a part of it, but there are some really good people that has, especially the lady that is in charge of the foundation, who had the idea of the foundation in Norway.
mm,
She's very pushed a lot of politically as well. So no, it is in the patients. We call it something special, but when you get diagnosed now, you
mhm.
are going to train.
Wow.
You are going to train uh, before and after. And on 4th of February this year, we opened up the first competence center in training and cancer. We have a full floor in the cancer hospital in Norway, and the king opened the facility, Norwegian king, and so it's the first, and we do. I will have to talk to you more because a very big American chain of hospitals have been in Norway, and they are going to open up the same in the US because we have worked with
Um,
Sloan Kettering Cancer Center,
yeah.
and in addition we have, because Adidas supported the foundation for 10 years, and they
Mhm.
wanted to be a little more international, so we started a program with Norwegian University Hospital in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And when they started 14 years ago, there was two or three doctors for the 90 million people. And we have since then been a part of educating about 50 doctors, I think, and nurses. And so it's the whole cancer, the whole cancer system in Ethiopia has changed, and we have been a part of it. And last 2 weeks ago, or 1 week ago, the first women's only race with Active Against Cancer was held in Addis.
Um,
16,000 women ran 5K, and there was photos of Grete on the sides of the race, and Haile Gebrselassie, the Grete's counterpart,
Yeah.
Adidas. He is probably one of the richest men in Ethiopia now, and he backs everything that we're doing there, and it has been made a great impact actually.
Yes,
So
I cannot think of any other way to conclude our interview than to have heard about this. And I just want to say that I
I can say,
appreciate,
by the way, I can send you some photos
oh, I would
afterwards.
love that. I appreciate your time, your thoughts going back in the history, and I appreciate everything you did for Greta and you were for Greta. And I especially finally appreciate her for everything she was to all of us. So thank you so much, Jack.
Could we spend 5 minutes afterwards, or can you?
Sure. Sarah,
Yeah,
Sarah?
they are finished.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get Sarah's. Sarah?